Hey friends. So we had some technical difficulties today. We can control a lot of things, but the rain is definitely not one of them. So we decided we didn't want anybody to miss out. We scheduled this today and wanted to get this information out to you guys as planned. And now the power is back on. So I'm excited to bring you this information today. A lot of you guys don't know that we do long-term property management, and not everything about long-term property management is awesome by any means, but there are definitely a lot of positives to it. So in case you don't know by now, this is my brother Lucas. We did not plan to match, but we do. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that. And he's my brother, at home in our free time, but at work, he is the property manager guru. He brings on all of our new owners, acquisitions, and he's the problem solver in the office. So he's an awesome resource. I don't really think anybody knows more about long-term management than probably he does. So Lucas, if you want to get started and kind of expand on what I've already said about you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. But yeah, just to kind of briefly introduce myself, I was basically, going to school, going to college, pursuing business. When I graduated, I went into, that kind of realm for a little less than a year. Wasn't exactly what I expected. At that point, you had started, the brokerage and, with Scott and with his parents, they had started everything and kind of laid the foundation out. And I reached out to you, and yeah, the opportunity came to, kind of join the team, maybe help manage and make some changes around the office. So, that's what we ended up doing. It's been like 4 years now, and we've come a long way. And yeah, I love what we're doing.
So Rental Realty, just so you guys know, is in Davenport, but we do manage homes in a lot of Central Florida, as far as Lakeland, Winter Haven.
Yeah, we have properties. I would say probably like 90% are in Polk. So Davenport, Haines City, Winter Haven. We have some in Lakeland. We have some in Dundee. Even we have a couple in Lake Wales. Then we've got Osceola with Kissimmee. We're touching into Poinciana as well. We do have Orlando. We've got a one-off in Fern Park. We've got all the way up in Lake County and Claremont. So I would say 90% is Polk, but we do have other homes on the outskirts of the counties as well.
So let's go ahead and just get rid of some of the anxiety, I think, that comes along with the word investment. Like investment, the word just freaks people out. It sounds scary and intimidating. So what is long-term property management? What is it in general?
Well, it's good to specifically know what is what, because a lot of times, for example, for us, somebody says, I want to buy, or I want to buy a vacation home. I want to buy a rental property, a rental investment. And so they go online and they look up property management Davenport, and then they call us and they say, hey, manage my house. And I'm like, okay, well, do you want a 7 to 12 month lease? And a lot of times they're like, no, I want a week or a month or whatever. So it's good to know the difference. Basically, the standard is 7 months plus is long-term. For us specifically, it's going to be 7 to 12 months. Some cases you can do longer. Some leases are 2 years in certain circumstances, not with us, 7 to 12. Anything less than 7 would be short-term.
And just on a side note, how long do you think the average tenant stays in a home?
Well, it just depends. I'd say really on average, probably 2 years, to be honest. Sometimes, we have tenants that have been in 9 years before I started, we have some tenants that are, going to be moving out basically every single year. They're going to move somewhere else. So it does kind of vary. It's kind of hard to predict that, but I would say on average 2 years, 2 years, 2.5, maybe even 3, to be honest. But I think 2 is probably the what I would go with on that
time frame. What do you think, what are the major fees that are associated with long-term property management? Is it worth it to hire somebody to do it for you? Why or why not?
So I have a saying, as you know, it's 8%, it can all go away. So basically there's no cost to sign up for management. If I'm not collecting rent, then I'm not getting a management fee for anything. So first, I'll explain to you the two different costs and kind of how it works. The bigger cost is the tenant allocation. So again, no cost to sign up. But for us, we're going to go basically do the advertising up front. We're going to show the home, do the screening, do the background check, create the lease, do the move-in. Once we have an executed lease and I have cleared funds, then we're going to take 65% of that first month's rent. So if it's $1,000, it's going to be $650. So that's the allocation fee. The other fee is a management fee, which is 8%. So, but like I said, there's no cost to sign up. So for example, the 8%, it can all go away. I had an owner give me a call, and basically she said, I live out of state. I haven't been able to get into the home for I don't know how long. She had repairs that she needed to do that she didn't know if they had been done properly, and she had tenants that were behind in rent. So she's telling me all this, and I'm just like, 8% it'll go away. And basically, she will sign on to management. And I'm going to do all the legwork. I'm going to be knocking on the doors of the tenants. I'm going to be going down there and trying to speak with them. I'm going to be the one posting notices if I need to. I'm going to be the one calling them as far as trying to collect rent. And long story short, we were able to basically collect rent from that tenant, which allowed me to get the management fee. But for that 8%, the owner doesn't have to worry about anything. She's just getting the direct deposit on the 15th. So if you ask me, unless you're doing that full time as your job, you're a landlord, you live local, I would say management for sure is the way to go. Just find somebody to partner with that you trust, that you think is going to do a good job.
Yeah, I think all of real estate in general is going to be a relationship business. And I think property management is absolutely no different from that. So I'm kind of the same mind as you. It's about finding just those right partners wherever, it is that your property may be located. So speaking of the actual home itself, what is required for a long-term rental property? Is there a specific type? Is it all-encompassing? What can you tell us there?
Well, I would say the first thing to do is just to verify your usage with the HOA. So it's not super common, at least in this area, but there are some communities that don't allow long-term in the traditional sense, meaning 7 months or plus. Some of them don't allow short-term. So whenever you're buying a property in general, it's good just to know if there's any leasing restrictions at all. So as long as there's no leasing restrictions, then we're pretty much clear on our end. The only other thing that we need is condition. I've had owners say, hey, I have this home, can you rent it out? Sometimes I go there and I'm like, I can rent it out, but you may need to do some painting, some cleaning, some tidying up. There is a standard there. So I think as long as the home is in good condition, comfortable condition, would you be comfortable to stay there? Basically, is kind of an easy rule of thumb. As long as it's habitable and in good condition, that's pretty much my rule. We have $500 lockouts and we have $3,000 a month single family. So there's a range of properties, and you can be at any level there as long as it's the usage is verified and condition. That's it.
Yeah, I think no matter where you go, people need somewhere to live. So basically, the process for us is going to be establishing, the value of the home, and then you saying yes or no, it does or doesn't work for me. But it can be furnished, it can be unfurnished, it can be a single family, it can be a condo, a lockout. We have so many different types of properties in different areas. So there's really something for everybody out there. So the nitty gritty, the part of management that scares everybody. No doubt. What happens if a tenant doesn't pay us? We're facing that right now. A lot of people are unemployed. Right now, there's different protections in place, but on real life, things still happen. So, what happens if a tenant doesn't pay? How do you deal with that?
Well, we'll go worst case scenario, I guess. Just so that you kind of know what the worst case scenario is. So, essentially, how it would work is the rent's going to be due on the 1st. The tenants have a 4-day grace period. So technically, they have until the 5th to pay. On the 6th, if they don't pay, they're going to have a late fee. Also on the 6th, they may be served a 3-day notice. The 3-day notice is essentially going to say you have 3 days to pay the rent or you need to vacate the property. If they don't get that done in that amount of time, then we can pursue an eviction. The cost for that is going to vary depending on the number of occupants in the county. But that's kind of your worst case scenario. They essentially could be out and then as soon as 30 days, maybe as long as, 60 days, it could even be. So that's kind of your worst case scenario. Obviously, keep in mind right now with COVID-19, evictions due to non-payment are on hold as far as that goes. So there wouldn't be anything you could do at the moment as far as if a tenant doesn't pay. If there was a lease violation for something else, not the wrong occupants in the property, something like that, you could still pursue that kind of eviction, but not a non-payment. On a sidebar to that, though, is I would say the people being more affected to that are people that have homes already occupied. So maybe your tenant's already in the home and they lose their job. If you're new to management, your new tenant would have to prove that they are making the income at the moment. So that may not be a huge concern for you as far as that goes. But like I said, the traditional sense, that would be the process, would be a 3-day notice and the eviction. That being said, 99% of the time, if a tenant is having payment issues, we're going to be in contact with them. They're going to be in contact with us, and it's going to be a payment plan. For the most part, we don't really ever have to escalate it to evictions. I mean, the reality is property management. It's not always a pretty business. It does happen. It has happened. It's going to happen again. But like I said, most people, they either get that 3-day and they say, oh man, I need to get my act together. And then it's a non-issue going forward. Or we're able to get them on some kind of payment plan. That's the most common scenario.
I think, just like just like anything else, communication is definitely key. And again, I think that's where that relationship can really come into play, is just being able to communicate with the tenants, communicate with the owners, and being proactive instead of being reactive. Unfortunately, it's not a common occurrence, but remember, guys, an investment is not guaranteed money. So my tip is reserves. Always have a reserve. Do not depend on the tenant to pay your mortgage. Life does happen. No matter how good somebody looks on paper, things happen that shake people's lives up that sometimes are not preventable. So make sure you have enough of a cushion there that if things do happen, it's not putting your home in jeopardy. If you don't, if you have a mortgage, if you have homeowners association, you have property taxes, make sure that those things are kind of already stowed away. We do have also the option to hold reserves. So some owners may say, hey, for the first 2 months, this property is tenanted, don't pay me. Just put the money in escrow, and then if something comes up, that money's already there and it's taken care of. If you have that flexibility, long-term management could definitely be a really good option. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to always have reserves. And there are things, for example, I'm going to be renting my house out soon. Sometimes you get owners that act surprised that things break, and it's just shocking. For me, for example, I know my AC is old. When I rent this house out, I have the expectation that it's old. Even if I have an AC that's 10 years old, I know that within, maybe the next 5 or 10 that I need to replace it. So that shouldn't be a surprise. Like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. There should be an expectation that you do need to maintain the house. And that every so often you're going to need to replace your roof. That every so often the AC is going to go out. So it's better to be smart, be prepared, know what you're getting into. If you have the flexibility for reserves, you definitely can do that. And like she said, we can hold on to it for you guys.
Reserves and also preventative maintenance. Don't expect to not service the AC for 5 years and then wonder why it's broken. Certain things are preventative maintenance and they should absolutely be done, and it's going to save you so much over the life of ownership of the property. So that's something to think about too. So in this area over here in Central Florida, especially in Polk County, Osceola County, we're seeing a huge boom in new construction. Is new construction a good investment as far as long-term goes?
Well, I think like anything else, it can be. It's just going to come down to the numbers. That's just strictly what it comes down to. What you're looking to get back. Some people think want a certain percentage, other people want a certain percentage. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I would say some of the pros of new construction is a lot of times the financing. A lot of times they have really good deals going on because the financing is partnering up with the builder, so they have a lot of good deals. So there's not always a lot of money out of pocket. The HOA fees are usually really low as well. Tenants usually do like the amenities. They, who doesn't want to move into a brand new home? Especially if you're not ready to buy one just yet. And then also you have your warranty for a year or two typically. So if something is damaged in the home, it's going to be covered by a warranty. So those are some of the pros. I would say the cons is obviously sometimes they come with a big price tag. Sometimes the monthly doesn't make sense, for what you're going to make in cash flow or for what the appreciation is going to be. So it just depends on the property, where it is, and what you're looking to get. But I think it's definitely an option to consider for sure.
Yeah, especially in our area, we do hear some great deals going on. I agree. It's all a numbers game and just what works best for your personal finances. So, like to keep it real with you guys. Everything in real estate is not all roses, and everything doesn't always go according to plan. So, what are some of the most common mistakes you hear from owners who have gotten into property management? We learn from our mistakes, right? So, what are the most common mistakes that you kind of hear happening most often?
Well, my biggest one, it's like a mistake, and it's also kind of a personal pet peeve because it's so preventable, and it's like every time I'm like, why did you do that?
Too real.
Why? And then you're going to make it my fault, and it's not my fault, and I could have helped you from the beginning. So the biggest one is people basically, doing their own independent research, which you should do. Do your own independent research, but verify. If you know that you're going to have the home be managed by me or by somebody else in town, then call us first before you buy and spend 6 figures on a property. Call us first and verify, hey, can this rent for what I think? Because you're running numbers based on things you haven't verified. Maybe you checked on Zillow or, whatever, but, I would contact who you plan on managing the property and confirm with that person, hey, I want to rent it for this much. Can you do that? Because I have people where they have it, $200-300 more a month. And, I'm happy to list it, but it's just going to sit. So, you gotta do your homework, or you gotta that's the biggest mistake, is contact somebody that's going to be able to give you the information. And not everybody knows, so make sure you get somebody that knows. I know, like, if somebody asks me for short term, I reach out to a short term agent and I verify. So that's definitely the biggest mistake that I've seen. Another one that I've seen recently, it's not so common, but it can happen. And this is another thing with communicating in advance as well, is communicate with an agent. If you're thinking about buying a house or renting it out, ask them what works you think need to be done first. Because I've gone to some houses recently, and as great as it is, from an investment standpoint, sometimes they're overshooting it. If you're spending $10,000 before a tenant moves in, but you're going to get $100 more a month in rent, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also, when the tenant moves out and you need to paint again, well, you just spent the 10 grand. You could have just done it when they left. So, those are the kind of things to think about as well. Those are the two most common I've been getting lately.
I agree 100%. 100%, no doubt. Finding the right home seems like an easy thing, but the rental market changes just as much as the sale market. The rental values change frequently. So we run comps all the time for our rentals to make sure that they're priced where they need to be to get them rented. Sitting on the market for 60 days could eat that total ROI that you need to make a profit over 12 months. Don't list it for the 100 higher. List it for the 100 less and make that, you're not vacant for 3 months. You're vacant for 30 days or 14 days. That's what it should be.
Yeah, I try to break that math down all the time, of getting it rented sooner for a lower rate than higher for, than having it sit on the market. And sometimes it just doesn't click. So yeah, that's definitely something worth mentioning for sure.
Yes, definitely. Sorry if you guys can hear my dog. This is work from home life 2020. He's very loud. Okay, sorry. So what are some creative ways to get started? I think most people feel that they need to have $100,000 cash or $1 million to own investment properties, when really it's not difficult to accomplish. It's not as scary as people make it out to be. So what are some of the best ways to get started?
Well, one of the way that I'm specifically doing it right now is a pretty common way. It's kind of a comfortable way to do it, but essentially I bought this house that I'm in right now as a conventional. So basically what I'm doing is I bought it at a price that I felt like, was a good entry price. I bought it for what it felt like there was already equity in the home. I've lived here now for 3 years. My mortgage for what I'm going to rent it to is, solid, going to be a solid cash flow, all that good stuff. So what I'm actually going to be doing, instead of, essentially I was looking at other investments and I was going to do 20% down on a conventional. If I buy a $100,000 property, I need 20 grand. On top of that, the condition has to be to a certain level too. And when you're buying a $100,000 property, you're not going to get a turnkey property that you can insure with the roof and all that. I learned that the hard way. I wasted a lot of money on appraisals. So what I'm doing instead is I bought this home. I'm living in it. I've been here 3 years. The equity's where I want it to be. The rent's where I want it to be. Now I'm just moving. So I'm moving. I'm still going to live in town, but I'm moving and I'm doing another conventional on that one for 5% instead of 20. And then I'm going to rent this house out. Had I done FHA, you can, I believe, have one FHA open at any time. So you would just do a refinance and you can do an FHA for the 3% if that's where you're at. I did conventional in this case. So that's definitely one way to do it. I met a woman at a Polk County real estate meeting, one of these here in Lakeland. She had 17 properties and she said that's how she got them all, was by basically doing that strategy. She'd live in one and then move and then rent that one out. You have to watch your debt to income, obviously on that, depending on how many mortgages you have and all that good stuff, depending on where you're at. But that's definitely a really good strategy to get started for not a lot of money down. Another way to do it, it just depends on what market you're in. Seller finance sometimes is an option. It just depends on where you're starting. I would say that if you go in the MLS and you're asking someone to seller finance, the answer is probably going to be no. But if you know an agent that has boots on the ground that, maybe knows about listings that, I don't know, that maybe are coming up, or maybe, somebody in town that is maybe thinking about selling their house. That's usually kind of how that kind of thing is going to work. Like I said, usually you're not going to go on MLS and call and say, do you going to take seller finance? But it is an option a lot of times, especially if you're just starting out investing, especially if you're starting out small and then you want to basically build your way up. That's another way you can do it.
Just to kind of touch on that, I think for me, it's about not biting off more than you can chew, and not there is such a thing as getting your feet wet. Like, if you're not good at doing repairs, then don't buy a fixer upper. Don't get emotionally attached to your investments. They are supposed to make you money. So, just because you want quartz countertops and, a particular type of cabinet doesn't mean that that's going to be your best return on investment. So when it comes to looking at investment properties, or getting started, be open-minded, because just because it's something you like doesn't mean that it's something that's going to be profitable. It doesn't always translate into dollars in your bank account, which ultimately is what it's about. So you want to, like you said, condition is key. And that's why that buy it and move works so well, because you're going to get it to a livable condition, right? Because you're there. So you're a lot more motivated, but don't get emotionally attached to those properties. They're money makers, and that's just what they are.
Yeah. And like you said, don't get emotional if you're working on an investment deal. I've been in and out of a couple, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that.
I'm with you on that too. If it's meant to be, it will be. You cannot force it. If it comes up with a ton of issues and it's just out of your comfort zone, or it's going to stretch you on your reserves, don't push it. The right one will come along.
Yeah, and that's a lot of times the responsibility of the agent. We'll get somebody that says, "I want a 3-bedroom home for 250K and this and this." Okay, well, what is your goal? What is your plan for that? Well, I want to do vacation rental. Okay, well, maybe this is how you need to do it instead. So sometimes, depending, people don't necessarily know what the best options are for them. So that's also finding a good agent that basically can help you match your needs to what exactly you need. Or well, you know what I'm saying. I'm eating my words here now.
Keith, you want me to answer this question? You gotta tell me yes or no if you want me to put it on the on the video. So you let me know. But yeah, I think condition is definitely key, and timing has to be right. But it's not as complicated, I think, as people make it out to be. Most definitely, and partnering up with a really good lender. Your rates matter. Your homeowners association matters. Every dollar is going to count. But don't let it shy you away. Something else you can also do is reach out to a management company and say, hey, do you have any properties in this price range that are tenanted, that already have somebody in place? So you don't really have anything to, you're making money day one. Vacation rentals, you can do that where you're taking over bookings. You can do the same thing when it comes to a long-term management. Hey, do you have anything in place with a tenant paying this much, or that the lease is up for renewal, whatever. Okay, so Keith has a question, throwing it in the mix. Where would you stand on Lauren and I's current place? So just a little background. Keith and Lauren live in Pensacola in a 3-bedroom house in a really cute neighborhood in a great area. Do you mean investment in terms of renting it, or in terms of buying it? You're going to have to share a little bit more information. And you're putting me on the spot because, your market's not my market, but I'll do my best.
You're familiar with that property.
I've been to it several times, but I haven't, searched.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay. So in the meantime, Keith's back to us. No, he's not. Okay. So in the meantime, what are some resources that people can use to find out more information on kind of how to get started in property management?
Gotcha. Well, I'm always an advocate of, don't pay for anything that you don't need to pay for anything yet. You know what I mean? So whenever you're going to start anything new, start small. So there's a lot of free stuff out there. I mean, YouTube is very obvious. Don't believe everything you hear online, but there are a lot of really, really good content creators, a lot of really credible people. You'll know more or less who's legit and who's not when you're on there. But there's a lot of free content you can do on there. So go through all that first. Don't go to any class. Don't go to any of this, buy that.
Rich.
I've all been fooled by them. Go to this webinar, go to this, go to that. Those have, some of those have value for sure, but I would say start with the free stuff first. Nothing that's trying to sell you anything, something that's just trying to provide value to you. So yeah, definitely YouTube. Bigger Pockets, if you're not familiar with that, they have a free podcast that's excellent. Their website, you can join and be a member. They have forums. I think he has a YouTube channel as well. I'm a big fan of Audible, so I do the 100 a month. There's plenty of really good real estate books for Audible. And then also asking other agents. I had a really good friend of mine that I used to work with before I started in real estate. He was interested in maybe getting in real estate, and he just said, "Hey, man, want to go out and grab a cup of coffee?" So we grabbed coffee. We talked for like 2 hours, and now we're working on some deals together. So that's a way to do it too. I get messages on Facebook from friends like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing real estate. Should I try it? Should I do this, that?" That's definitely a good thing to do as well. It's just
great to ask. Like most, I feel like people in real estate are really friendly and can be super resourceful. So just partner up with someone that you feel comfortable with. Don't be afraid. You don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah, no, for
It's
sure.
worth putting yourself out there. It's your money on the line. So it's definitely worth getting all the information that you can from all the resources that you can. So I'm going to take it back to Keith's question because we've got a couple minutes here. So Keith is curious about buying their home and turning it into a rental. Keith, I think your house is a great investment. It goes to show because you guys have been renting there for a good period of time, and you're already doing work to it and you don't own the property. So if you're investing money into it already, it makes good sense. Your properties in your neighborhood don't stay on the market very long for sale or for rent, and you don't have an extremely high turnover rate. So I think location-wise, size-wise, it's cost-effective. So I do think it's a great investment if you were interested in buying it to rent it later. It's what Lucas has done. It works. And it's a great way to get started without being kind of overwhelmed and carrying, like you say, 2 mortgages and all that. So any other questions, guys? I think that's just about it. We've almost hit our 30 minutes. Lucas, if anybody wants to reach you with further questions about investing in homes, diversifying their portfolio, Polk County area, what would you recommend? How can they contact you?
Email is always good. It's just my first name, Lucas, Lucas, at rentalrealtygroup.com. You can call or text me as well. My phone number is 407-538-2096.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me tonight. I know it's a little bit late for everybody. It was definitely not what was intended, but I'm glad we got everything out to you. Feel free to reach out with any questions. We wish you guys all the happiest in your investing ventures. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be intimidated. Now is definitely the time to be thinking of passive income, especially, with the things that are going on in the world right now. It could be very affordable. So if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you later.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good night.
Bye.